What has been your unexpected NSFW moment with a stranger? Dude was whispering dirty things in my ears like I'm gonna FK you so hard later. Feeling creeped out, I turned back and his expression changed from surprise to embarrassed. Turned out he thought I was his wife. I'm not even a woman. An old lady, late 60s early 70s, grabbed my ass in line at a cafe and whispered I love a tight young man. Didn't know how to respond, so I just said FK off cunt and left. Felt gross for the rest of the day. Took a shower the second I got home for some reason. Got an ultrasound on my knee, and when she was done she took a paper towel and wiped off as much of the lube as she could. And classic me, trying to be friendly and make small talk, I was like, oh, I bet you have so much experience doing that, right? Totally meaning since she works as an ultrasound tech she must wipe lube off people all day. But she got all awkward and it dawned on me that I just told this woman she has lots of experience putting lube on people and taking it off. Was about 15 driving home with my dad from his workplace. Staring off from the passenger seat wondering what a shit life he had having to work weekends, and I spot a McDonald's across the street. It had a huge glass window around a playground where at that moment two pretty 20-something females seemingly happened to lock eyes with me. Dad turns over to look at what I'm looking at, probably thinking, this guy's hungry. At that moment the two women lift their tops to reveal two sets of the largest tits I had ever seen in real life or photo. At that point, me and my dad just start laughing our heads off. I was driving on a freeway. I pass a car that didn't have a roof and she was topless. Two teenagers flashed at me when I was driving to a XGF house. Taking a dump at work, just minding my own business. Janitor comes in and starts cleaning the bathroom. No problem. Then he jiggles the door. No big hell, figure someone is in there and leave it for later. Nope. My panic sets in as he jimmies the door open and I finally make a noise and he locks eyes with me for a split second before closing the door and saying sometimes they lock themselves. Sorry, WTF, man. I was delivering pizzas and got caught in a pretty heavy Florida thunderstorm. I was on my last delivery and was trying to meet someone at a specific time later, so rather than wait it out I charged out of my car to the person's door. After some frantic knocking, a woman opened the door and pulled me inside. I had gotten there earlier than expected and she had just gotten out of the shower and was only wearing a towel. 19-year-old me had seen way too many porn movies start like that, so imagine my disappointment when she handed me a $20, pizza was $16, and opened the door back to hell. I met this girl on a bar crawl and we hit it off okay. Danced a little bit but sparks weren't flying by any means. She's on the crawl with a group of friends. We're all walking back to their hostel and when we get there she says she's going to bed. I was pretty disappointed until her friend looked at me and told me to come upstairs. We had sex in the hostel bathroom and at one point girl number one walked in. Using the logic from my extensive porn viewing, I asked if she would like to join. If I've learned one thing from pornog, it was that she wouldn't be able to resist. Alas, she seemed to pretty easily turn down the offer. At a Beastie Boys concert in the 90s, lost my friend so was hanging out in the crowd. Hands reach around my waist. I look down to see a long beautiful fingernails, a black woman. It is so cool. I just keep dancing. Then the hands go down inside my shorts and she starts jerking me off right there. This goes on for 2 to 3 minutes. The weird part is that after she stopped I turned around and this beautiful black woman was walking away with a new skinny white man. They obviously knew each other. He gave me a smirk. I had tons, but the most unexpected one is the homeless guy who's choking his chicken in the middle of the street at 3 in the morning. We were just walking home after rewatching Endgame in my friend's house. When we saw the homeless guy, we all just laughed very discreetly and one of my friends said whatever it takes. I was body surfing at a public beach in 2004, and I caught such a fast and perfect wave that I sped out of the water faster than I ever have. But when I stood up I realized my boob popped out of my swimsuit top. I fixed my top and ducked into the water and looked around to check if anyone had seen, but nobody saw, or so I thought. I decided it was a good time to leave immediately. On my walk back some dad-aged guy comments to me, "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone." I was mortified, and I think I shot him a death glare. BTW, I was a teenager. Had sex with a woman the second time meeting her. We went on a hike and ended up fucking in the burned out husk of a redwood tree. Does that count? Edited for clarity, although I do like druids. I was about 15 standing in a queue for an intertown bus. The queue was quite long and we stood for some maybe 45 minutes moving slowly. At some point, this big-breasted older, 30 to 35, woman stood behind me and had her breasts pressed tightly onto my back, Like the queue was tight but she was really unnecessarily pressed on my back and sort of moving slightly. I knew obviously that this wasn't very normal nor necessary, but it's only years later when I realized that she was intentionally rubbing her breasts on my back for a very long time and it was probably sexual. I was drunk and hooked up with a girl I had just met 45 minutes earlier, ended up in the back of her car with a bunch of people watching me through the window. I hate to admit it, but I couldn't remember her name until she told me the next morning. Not really a stranger but someone I knew. We played a card game with the loser doing a dare or truth. We both end up naked and he f***ed me. I was having a smoke outside the club, and some handsome guy, who I thought was asking me for a cig, told me that he liked my bulge lol. In a way that was somehow rather polite easy, he asked if he could reach into my pants and feel my balls real quick. It never really heard of anyone particularly turned on by balls, so I was like okay yeah, that's fucking hilarious, kind of hot. I let him grab my balls behind an ATM while he waited for his Uber. Well, it didn't happen with a stranger, but with a friend. We played Kirby together and suddenly she put her hand between my legs and asked how I feel. I was at an EDM concert trying to get up to the front. There was a lot of pushing and this girl in front of me pushed her back into me. I gave her a little push to try to get her out of my way. I was then next to her and she bumped her hip into mine. At this point I had no idea what her problem was. I bumped back. A couple booty bumps later and we were grinding. I was recently getting impressions taken of my teeth so I could get Invisalign. While the dentist was holding the tray on my top teeth, he very casually said, "I'm impressed by your lack of gag reflex." And that's how I died of embarrassment in front of my hot dentist. My first time in a strip club and I walked into the bathroom to find a small Japanese man masturbating in the corner. He didn't even stop when I walked in, just looked me in the eye for a second and went right back to town on himself. Pulled a classic anime trope of tripping over a bag and getting a face full of titty. Back in high school had no idea who the girl was but damn she made for a soft landing. I was at public beach, 15 yo then, and some lady on her 20s sits next to me, smiles at me and undressed to bikini. After a while I took my shirt off and out of nowhere this lady just asked something in French, so I asked what and she said look. I was dumbfounded when she just stripped her top and flashed her shaft. After that she just stared at me for like 10 minutes until she dressed and went to some actually hot looking men. Rather tame, but funny. Many years ago I was in a small store that was narrow. It had a counter on one side and newspaper/magazine rack on the other. There were 3 older ladies chatting to the rather dorky shopkeeper. I picked up a newspaper and turned around to take it to the counter to pay, while turning my elbow rub against one of the ladies' ample bosom. I was super embarrassed and apologized. She laughed and said don't worry about it, it's been too long since anyone touched me there. Her friends and the shopkeeper roared with laughter. I went beetroot red, quickly paid and left. Bumped into 2 women shopping separately the other day while out with my family and meant to say we had a 3-way traffic jam but only said, oops. Looks like we have a 3-way. Full dad mode has been implemented. And not even fun dad. Apparently I'm the embarrassing dad. I was going to the Dalhousie Library one day and did not realize campus had been shut down due to snow. Decided to go work at the new Halifax Public Library instead. When I arrive it is also closed. This girl is walking up towards it and I tell her about our unfortunate situation. She then suggests we go to this weird hippie tea shop to study. We end up talking, and after about half an hour go back to my place to bang. Saw her on Bumble a few months later in Toronto, matched with her, turns out she's a real-life prostitute now, probably was then as well, and said I'd have to pay this time. Went skinny dipping in Sri Lanka with 2 girls I had just met a few hours earlier. It was pretty unsafe because it was dark and we were all drunk. Not a stranger but still. I was at the confirmation of my best friend. Her grandpa was also there. When I hugged him he whispered in my ear something like your boobs aren't that small anymore. They're gonna be fine. I didn't know what to say or do. I was showering after a swimming workout at Förskrinska pool in central Stockholm, Sweden, in my late 20s. After rinsing my hair, I open my eyes and see a man in his 50s looking at my penis. When he notices that I see him, he says very nice. I try to act confused as if I don't understand what he's talking about. I knew, so I say I beg your pardon? So he says it more clearly now, by looking at my genitalia and says that looks very nice. I just say thank you. I went to a theme park as school trip with my friends. We were 15 and at the top there was this girl wearing t-shirt. We saw her nipples and that's it. I'm a vet assistant. I do many things, but a big part of my job is restraining pets and helping the doctor examine the pet. So we had this 110-pound dog named Rosie. Well, Rosie was brought in by her college-aged male owner and his friends. The doctor was trying to look at the dog's belly, and the dog was rolling around on the floor. I was on the floor too, and wound up basically cradling her head on my lap while holding her front legs still and hand-feeding her treats. And then I realized that my head was maybe about a foot away from the guy's crotch, because he was sitting on a bench. R.I.P. At least I didn't make eye contact. When I was 12 years old, me and my mom, God bless you, wherever you are now, dear mother, went out to a barber shop to get my hair cut. There was this lady with a shirt. The shirt has like a whole thing. I don't know how to word it. It gave like this open view on some of her breast. Needless to say, I asked my mother to never go back to that particular barber shop ever again in fear of the lady finding out I kept glancing at her chest. I mean, not gonna lie, it was pretty huge. One time in high school when I was working as a cashier, I was ringing in a very attractive guy that I'd guess was a couple years older than me. I got tripped up between saying have a good night and have a good day. Somehow it came out as have a good lay, and the guy gave me a strange look and left without saying anything else. I was mortified that I basically told him to enjoy getting laid. Definitely been in an unexpected stranger situation before. I'm in the army and I do Uber on the side for some spare cash. So I'm in good old Nashville, Tennessee late one night picking up people like crazy. Some sort of festival. Well, at one point I pick up two girls, both of which are pretty drunk and attractive. The one falls asleep, so when we get to the destination, I help her friend get her inside their apartment. Immediately after we put her to bed, the other girls comes on to me strong. So, I obliged and we went to her room and banged. Never got a name, number, nothing. After we were done, she smiled, said thanks, and showed me to the door. Okay, so I go to an art school. I got pretty accustomed to seeing nude artworks. From sketches to paintings to people. We had live nude models come in every now and then. We have watched a lot of art films that contain some form of nudity. But the weirdest of all is when a person you're casually making chit-chat with at the printer randomly offers to show you their work. That work being them spreading a lot of eagle in some weird-ass dungeon. I can admire the artists who have the guts to create art using their own bodies, whether it's sexual or not. But somehow, those shock-style photos I cannot get behind. Was at a friend's quinceañera, 15th birthday, and went to the bathroom. I came out to three girls what I assume were waiting for me and flashed me at the same time. I work at a rental place with a gigantic assortment in party supplies. Well, one day a woman in her 30s/early 40s came to return some speakers and decorations she rented the day before. As always I ask, how'd go? To which she enthusiastically replies, oh, it was great. We used them for a beach party. The speakers sound great, the decorations look lovely, yada yada. But then she pulls out her phone to show me pictures, but all the pictures are mostly of her completely naked. Oh wow, you look. I mean, it looks great.